Alright, some of you probably have no clue what a Claymore is, so let me introduce you to what I like to call peak anime. Imagine Guts from Berserk, but instead of a man, it's a woman. A white woman! But it's not really a white woman, oh no. Her race can only truly be defined as around and find out. And her special ability, well, there's multiple of those, but her main one is called when she eventually crashes out, not if, but when, everyone dies. And there's a whole organization of these women, and each member is more powerful than the last one. Plus, they're all trauma-filled and scarred, literally, and it wields a Claymore like a Karen wields a 911 speed dial button. You ain't never gonna see without it. The majority of these Claymore women is what I like to call the pinnacle of female characterization. She makes your favorite female waifu look a little bitch. Your favorite waifu has man problems, meanwhile she is the problem. Your favorite waifu doesn't need a man, meanwhile Claymore can't get a man. Your favorite waifu can't find a solution, the Claymore waifu is like, ha! Skill issue! Demon-like monster trying to eat people? Hit it with a Claymore. Bandits trying to raid a village? Hit it with a Claymore. Other Claymores talking that shit? Hit them with a Claymore. It's Monday and you're depressed and lonely? First off, ha! Loser! Second, your problems can probably be solved if you hit that shit with a Claymore. God, the only problem with this series is that there's only one season of it. And this guy's in it, we don't talk about him. Okay, 18 plus, 26 episodes, and multiple great female characters who aren't overly sexualized. Not that I would complain if they were, but there is fan service in this anime. Oh yes, you wanna know where it is? I'll tell you, it's in the Claymore. This anime has taught me all problems can be solved by crashing out and hitting shit with a Claymore. It's what all men were truly meant to do. And this anime is on Crunchyroll right now in dub, so go and watch it. If you like the anime Berserk, attractive females with claymores and trauma, and someone cute, adorable, elf-like ears, then for God's sakes, watch that anime, and prepare to be enraged like me that there is no season 2. Why, God? Alright, let's get down to the nitty-gritty of it. Claymores in the series are usually known as titular characters. And titular here means basically their title holds no real importance, and this is because more or less they are a slave to their job. They cannot quit. If they try to quit, the organization would label them as a deserter, and they'll send a hunting party of other Claymores after them to have them killed. So basically it's the equivalent to working at Amazon or Waffle House. Except when they're asked to clock out by the manager, the organization means that literally. Tragic. Anyway, Claymores are named after the great swords they wield, and they are half human, half Yoma. Now you may be asking yourself, Knight, what is a Yoma? Well, if I'm using common sense, you can basically chalk up a Yoma to being a demon or just some random monster for the heroes to kill. But this is an anime and common sense don't mean shit. So what a Yoma is in the series is a being that feeds on human flesh and blood, because of course it does. Why does every monster in fiction want to eat us? We're humans, we don't taste that good. And most of us are extremely unhealthy, fat, and full of drugs. Matter of fact, if someone like Dracula bit a LGBTQ, blue-haired, fat-induced, obese, flat-earther individual, that man probably explode or get super AIDS, either one. Anyway, besides the flesh and blood part, these beings can also shapeshift into human forms that allows them to live among humans. So they're kind of like skinwalkers. And they were created by the organization, which are basically just old creepy dudes in black, and possibly one of them is named Morpheus or Neo. But they were created by the organization, and the organization created them by combining the flesh of both a humanoid and an awakened Osaricum. And an Osaricum is also something known as a dragonkin. Now this combination forms a parasite with transfigurative abilities that is capable of infecting the brains of unsuspecting human hosts, which the end result of this being a Yoma. Now currently in the story, all Claymores are female.
Nice.
Now there were male Claymores, but either they fully awakened or they were killed. They had a great amount of strength, but because they couldn't resist the awakening process, most of them turned into a full Yoma. And this is because the awakening process brings a sensation akin to sexual pleasure. Or in other words, No Nut November was too long and the boys needed the goon. Crazy, but relatable. Now the females technically don't have this problem, at least not in the same way. The way I saw it in the anime, they basically take longer to turn into Yoma, but eventually they all will turn into Yoma, or more or less become awakened. Now the awakening process is definitely a con, because it can happen from a Claymore basically overusing her abilities. To make it short, sweet, and simple, the theoretical limit for them is 80%. If the majority of them use more than 80% of the power, they will crash out, or in other words,
なんだ、何にも我慢なんてすることなかったじゃない。こんなに気持ちのいいものだったなんて。化け物。 内装食べたい
Yeah, so that's not good. She's kind of hot. Shut up! Now, other than having the ability to awaken, which is obviously something they don't want to happen, the standard Claymore has heightened physical strength, speed, durability, and regeneration. They have a limited shapeshifting ability and the ability to detect Yoma and other Claymores by sensing their Yoki. And I have to mention in the story, some Claymores can partially awaken. This happens when a Claymore surpasses the 80% mark, but basically keeps herself from crashing out. This causes a permanent increase in power and occasional hunger pangs. Now, besides the Claymore's powers, how they're trained up is also important for this conversation. The organization takes them in as young girls that are typically orphans or abandoned children, and even survivors of Yoma attacks. And the worst one, they're purchased from families and villages if they possess a desirable quality. These young girls are then embedded with Yoma flesh and blood into their bodies through an incision made from the throat all the way down to their mons pubis, or in other words, their groin. Now this incision, this cut that I just mentioned, is the main con that I have for these Claymores. This incision is held together through a series of stitches, and the stitches are basically there to keep the organs inside, if you know what I mean. And even though they have regenerative abilities, this incision never heals, ever. And this cut apparently looks so nasty that even when the Claymore Teresa was going to be sexually assaulted by bandits, when she showed them her incision, they immediately changed their minds. The Claymores are apparently not made in any way for loving. They are made specifically for fighting. And other cons include, even though they protect humans, they are also feared by most humans, unless you're a horny gooner. And because of their Yoma blood training and social isolation, plus the harsh lives, they can come off as outwardly cold and emotionless. And part of their harsh lives include the inability to enjoy the pleasures of food. On top of that, a lot of them have mental instability and psychological problems. And Claymores characteristically sleep and rest sitting up while leaning against their swords. I even read that the Claymore Teresa was unable to sleep in a bed. And just in case you didn't know, Claymore Teresa is the GOAT! The GOAT! But her life sucks. And yes, Teresa is the one that I showed getting her head cut off. And the one who cut off her head was a Claymore named Priscilla. And we will not talk much about Priscilla here. That was kind of hot. Silence, goon! And also, before I forget, Claymores are technically immortal. And also, the main Claymore in the series is Claire. Now, Claire is a little bit different than most Claymores. While she is described as being very beautiful, she is also described as being weaker than other Claymores. At least at the beginning of the series. This changes at the end, or towards the middle. Now basically the reason Claire is weaker at the beginning of the series is simply because her process of becoming a Claymore was a little bit different than the others. Y'all remember the head that I showed you getting cut off just a few minutes ago? Yeah, so the way the anime explained it, they put Teresa's head inside Claire's body. This makes Claire 1/4 Yoma as opposed to 1/2 Yoma. Claire has also been shown in the anime to be a little bit romantically involved with Shota over here. Yeah, this is a medieval dark fantasy time period, so I mean, if it's legal, it's legal, whatever. Also, this kid doesn't canonically have an age, but he is known as an adolescent. And he has the most punchable face I've ever seen in my life. He actually reminds me of Chris from Sonic X. He's just as useless, just as annoying, and even more of a gooner. He got that kiss though. That's true, but it's not like Claire has that many options. Claymores in this universe are known as witches and slayers, and more or less, monsters. Now, I have to mention, Claire may be the exception to this romantic rule, but other Claymores canonically avoid relationships. And again, canonically, they all eventually will turn into an awakened being. So, tell me what you think in the comments, viewer. Do you think a Claymore, despite her cons, is wise to date? And would you smash a woman with an incision from her neck to her groin? Would, no question. Voice, why? Bruh, not smashing a Claymore because of her incision is like not smashing a hot chick just because she has a disability, like having one leg or something. So you're saying if she's hot enough, it's still worth it? I mean, and I hate to use common sense here, but she has a mouth. Voice, that's dirty! Disabled chicks need love too, goddammit. And if they're willing, I must volunteer as tribute. Some may think it's weird that I smash a woman with an incision in her body, but I say it's even weirder to pass up the chance to get the Gluck Gluck 9000 from Hellish Teresa, also known as Teresa of the Faint Smile, and also known as the GOAT! The GOAT! Fools, to goon with legends is always worth it. Always! Now go and watch some Claymore. Bye!